All right, so it's 1 minute past the hour. I think that's a good point to get started. So thank you everyone for joining today's coffee break from us here at Team SCOMathon. Today we're going to be talking about SCOM alerting basics. So this is really the fundamental building blocks that go into making SCOM do what it does best. And some of these things are so foundational, you think, everyone must know this, but we're surprised when we speak to customers. Sometimes people don't know this, sometimes people are new to SCOM and where do they go to learn such things. So that's what the thrust of this webinar is all about. So let's dig in. But before we do, hopefully this will let me click. Let's see, Samir, you may have to click for me.
Yeah, sure. All right, does that work?
Thank you, that's perfect. The joys of GoToWebinar. So before we dig in, we'll be discussing any questions that come up over on Slack. Equally, if anything comes to mind after today's webinar, please take it onto Slack. We're always very happy to take questions there during and post the webinar. This link at the bottom of the screen will take you there to our Slack workspace, but equally, you should have got this link in the joining information when you registered for today's coffee break. So just to quickly introduce ourselves, if you could click for me, Samir, this is where it's. I'm Bruce Cullen, I'm the Director of Products here at Cookdown, and you probably have already guessed who my special guest is today, if you click again. My guest is Samir. Samir, you're a Technical Evangelist at SquaredUp. Welcome, good to have you with us.
Thank you so much.
Although I guess you probably already guessed that by the fact I'm asking Samir to click. So Samir, you've been around SCOM for a long old time. You blog on SCOM and you know exactly how it works at a kind of fundamental level. By contrast, I know nothing, so I'll be learning from you today as well with everyone else, which is
awesome.
Always good. So I pretty much, without further ado, I'm going to hand over to you and interject with questions if relevant. So take it away, Samir.
Thank you, Bruce. Hey, everyone. As Bruce mentioned, so my name is Samir Mhaisekar. I'm a tech evangelist at SquaredUp. I have been working with SCOM for a few years now, and I started with SCOM 2007, actually. So it was one of my first deployments. And then I was involved in some migration projects. So we moved from 2007 to 2012, 2016, and then recently also 2019, right? So I've also got experience with in-place as well as side-by-side migration. So I have built a lot with alerts and how to actually migrate those alerts. I've also been involved in alert tuning, management back tuning, and all that good stuff. So yeah, I have some experience, I guess, to back up my slides here. So without further ado, let me just straight jump into it. Before we talk about alerting in SCOM, actually, so let's talk a bit about alerts in general. So what are alerts? Why do you need them? What should an alert look like? What happens should you miss an alert, right? So that sort of thing. So an alert is basically an event that needs attention, right? So in monitoring, it can translate to notifying the admins when a certain Windows event has occurred, or say like a service has stopped, or storage is running out of space, CPU is running out of memory, all that things. So an alert is basically it's a change or an anomaly that you want to know about. Some alerts can be proactive, like if a disk is filling up and you get an alert that it has reached a certain warning threshold, then you want to know about it before it gets critical, right? So we want to know about it before the disk has completely failed. So these are the alerts that warn you before something bad is going to happen, so you can take your measures to prevent that unwanted event. Then there's some alerts that are reactive, so that are raised when something has already broken, right? So for example, if say a service has stopped, so that alert will only let you know that the service has stopped after the fact, right? After the fact that the service has stopped. So you can only react to it, say by restarting that said service, but you cannot really prevent that service from stopping in the first place. So then what should an ideal alert look like, right? So what are the things that an alert should tell you so that you can get maximum useful information out of it? Bruce, this is my first question for you. Do you want to guess what should an alert look like?
Oh, I would guess something to do with what happened, what the issue is, what needs to be
Mm-hmm.
resolved, and then the thing that has gone wrong would be my guess. Probably also something to do
Yeah,
with
that's pretty bang on.
priorities.
Mm-hmm.
How important is the
Exactly.
alert?
Yeah, so that's pretty good guess. Yeah, so you actually got some of those aspects right. So an alert should basically contain the following, right? So of course, like Bruce said, how important the alert is and what is the urgency and how urgent it is to fix it, right? So in monitoring terms, these terms are called severity and priority. So severity can be one of three states, like it can be informational, which are like just some like FYI kind of events that you may want to acknowledge, but don't really need an action, right? And then you've got warning alerts. These are the events that they potentially may turn into more serious events if you keep ignoring them for long enough. So if you want to be proactive, keep an eye out on keep an out for them, right? So going back to the disk example, if you get the warning level, if disk has filled 75%, 80%, whatever, before it reaches say 90 or 95, you want to stop it right there, right? So you want to clean that disk right now. And then you've got critical alerts. Of course, these are the alerts, as the name suggests, that they are the most serious alerts, and they ideally mean that an immediate action is required, right? So you should be working towards resolving these alerts with priority, as they might be the actual alerts that are like impacting your business the most. Then next up, you've also got resolution states, right? So where in the alert lifecycle that alert currently is. So the most common alert ones are like new state or open alerts or acknowledged alerts or pending alerts, closed alerts, and so on. You can also create your own custom resolution states. Say, for example, an alert has come that has to go to, say, like Samir. So you can have your own custom resolution state saying that assigned to Samir or something, and then you can assign that state to that particular alert, and then your team will be notified of all the life cycle that alert has been currently going through. You can also use resolution states. These all actually, so they all go tie with all the ITSM framework, right? So you've got ITIL framework is like how you should be treating your alerts and what are the actions, SLAs, and ticketing tools, all the automation stuff. So the resolution states can actually help you with automating a lot of stuff. Then obviously an alert should have a name that is sensible, and it tells you all the most like important bits at the first glance, right? So for example, you don't just want a generic alert that says, hey, a service has stopped. You actually want to know which service has stopped, right? So, or say an alert saying that a Windows event 1234 has been detected. That is actually not useful at all. You actually want to know what that occurrence of that event 1234 actually means for me. And so that is an alert should contain a sensible name. Then once you've got the crucial information out of the way from the name of the alert, you can then look to see for more supporting information about that alert, right? So things like when did the alert occur, why did it occur, and what are the steps I could possibly take to resolve that alert. Yeah, basically, right? And on what caused that alert. So in SCOM, you've also got causes and resolutions and monitors and rules that we'll talk about later. And lastly, all of this is of no use if you don't know where the alert is coming from, right? So it's like you don't want to perform a nose surgery when you're shot in the leg. And so you want to exactly know the source of the alert and pinpoint to the least possible, or let's say the most accurate position of that alert, right? So you don't just want to know a service has stopped. You also want to know on which server, so you can actually go ahead and do something about that service. So yeah, Bruce, you got it pretty much right. So you named a few of them quite right.
Nailed it.
All right. So now that we've talked briefly about alerts in general, let's talk about SCOM alerts in particular now, right? So this is what an alert in SCOM looks like. I don't know what the resolution of that image is. Is that readable, Bruce?
Looks okay to me, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So this is what a typical SCOM alert looks like. It's got all the good things that we just talked about. It's got severity, it's got source, it's got a path, it's got a mostly sensible name. It's also got a couple more features that we'll talk about briefly in the upcoming slides. And so in SCOM, alerts can come from one of these two mechanisms or workflows, as they call it in SCOM, monitors or rules. To someone who's just starting newly with SCOM, these are a bit confusing in the beginning, but there are some subtle but important differences between these two. So we will discuss them in more details in a bit. But perhaps the most obvious difference to remember is that monitors are the ones that affect the health state of your object, while the rules don't. What that means is that there are different strategies to treat and tune the alerts depending on whether they are coming from a monitor or a rule. Right, so what was that, Bruce? You have a question?
No. I was just going to pick up on one point from the previous slide there, which is that one thing that's often overlooked when dealing with SCOM alerts is that knowledge stuff that's at the bottom of this screenshot here, which is really, really important. So when the person that wrote the monitoring wrote the workflow that contained this monitor, they didn't just include the information you need to tell you what's gone wrong and where that thing is, but also how you solve that problem. And that's contained in the knowledge section at the bottom. And it's very, very useful when trying to figure out how do I actually solve this problem. So I wanted to highlight that.
Exactly. So there are some like very detailed alert descriptions in some of the management pack that especially come from Microsoft. So for example, if you see this one here, the alert description, it actually tells you this particular profile. It lists out the profile that cannot be resolved. That's a SquaredUp EAM, whatever custom. This profile cannot be resolved. So this is very crucial information for you to even begin your troubleshooting, right? Again, like going back to the source thing of alert, if you don't know where the alert is coming from, if you don't know that you've been shot in the leg, there's no point checking your temperature, right? There's no point performing a nose surgery. So you need to know where exactly that alert is coming from. I will show you in a demo. We'll also take a look around. There are more things to this alert. There are also tasks and overrides and all the good stuff that I'll show that in the demo. Right, so let's talk about monitors first. Like we saw earlier, monitors are the ones that have like a direct impact on the health state of the object that they're alerting on, right? So if a monitor turns, say, yellow or red, the underlying object will also turn yellow or red. You can see what monitors are currently affecting the health of the object from Object Health Explorer, right? So every object has got a Health Explorer, and there will be a list of all the currently active monitors in that Health Explorer view. And also, monitors will create alerts only when the health state of that monitor changes. This is a table as to what the policies of that health state changes are, and when it will and when it won't create an alert. So suppose if a monitor, alerts you that a service has stopped, now that monitor is going to turn red. Now, as long as that monitor stays red, it will not generate the same alert again. Another important thing to remember about monitors is that the alerts created by monitors will resolve themselves when the underlying monitor goes back to healthy. Right? So for example, a monitor creates an alert for, say, CPU hitting 90% on some server. And if after a while the CPU settles down, goes back below 90% for a particular amount of time, then the monitor will turn healthy again, and the alert will also disappear from the console. And since monitors alert only when their health changes, these are actually sometimes prone to missing out alerts if you're not careful, right? So for example, if you've got a monitor that detected a critical Windows event and it turned critical, now you notice that the alert, you notice the alert and the performance and perform the action that you were supposed to do to resolve that alert. But the monitor does not know about it and it stays critical. That is just a simple event detection monitor, so it doesn't know if there has been any action that's actually been taken on that alert or not. So it stays critical. So now if that event is detected again, you are not going to receive that alert because the monitor is already critical. It is already alerted once, and it has never went back to healthy state. So it cannot be critical again. So you will end up missing that critical alert, right? So that is why there are a few ways to reset the health of a monitor. So you can either manually reset them, which in my personal experience is not the best way. I would really recommend it because in most situations, if you don't go back and reset it yourself, the monitor will stay red and you'll miss the upcoming alert like we just talked about, right? Alternatively, you can reset the health of the monitor on a timer, right? So you can tell the monitor to reset itself automatically after a certain amount of time, say like go back to healthy every 10 minutes or whatever. So irrelevant of whether any action has been taken on that alert or not.
So
and if the monitor, yeah.
Hopefully, maybe a stupid question, which is why I'm going to ask it. So presumably, if a monitor is reset, but the underlying health of the thing that's being monitored is not healthy, then if that's a manual reset or a timer-based reset, then that monitor will come back unhealthy and will generate a new alert. Is that true?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Right.
That is actually this. Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to talk about. Right. So if you reset it back to healthy, and if the monitor detects the same violation again, since it was now sent to healthy, it is now ready to get critical again, and it will raise a new alert. Right. So the tricky part about this is that this may cause repetitive alerting, like you just said, Bruce. Right. So meaning you will get the same alert over and over again, because it does not know whether an action has been performed. Say like some action has not been taken yet, but the monitor has gone back to healthy. But again, it is detecting, it is telling you again that, hey, actually this alert has come again. So now you're going to get that alert again. It's going to go through your life cycle again. If you got any automation with your ticketing tool, it's going to create another same duplicate ticket essentially. Right. So that is the trick part of it. And lastly, you can also reset the health of the monitor by detecting, say, like a healthy event. So the monitor will turn red on a critical event. It will give you an alert. It will stay red, so it doesn't create new alerts, and it will then reset itself only after another Windows event is detected that indicates an action has been taken on the alert. Right. So, for example, an alert that is critical that you want to be notified about is, say, like system log 100 alert. Now you've taken some action on it, and as part of that action, you've also raised a new event. It can be a custom event, can be a system event that indicates that, hey, an action has actually been performed on this particular alert, and the monitor will detect it, and then only it will go back to healthy. So this is where you will actually save a lot of repetitive alerting. And then based on the functions that they perform, there are a couple of types in a monitor. So you've got unit monitors, dependency monitors, and aggregate rollup monitors. A unit monitor is the one that does the actual heavy lifting, right? So it is the ground soldier, if you will, that actually runs some scripts, runs some workflows, collects the output, compares with the conditions that you've set, and then raises an alert if any violation is detected. Right? So, then you've got an aggregate rollup monitor. So this is a monitor that oversees a bunch of unit monitors, and as the name suggests, the health of the child unit monitors actually rolls up to the health of the aggregate monitors. There are a couple of health policies that you can set. on this monitor to make its state change based on the health of the children monitors. They're actually called best of policies or worst of policies. For example, if you only want to change the health of the roll-up monitor when any of them is critical, then you will go for the worst of policies. Or if you want the monitor to stay healthy as long as any one of the children is healthy, then that is the best of policy. So you've got that customization available at this point. Then you've got a dependency roll-up monitor that rolls up the health state from targets linked by either a hosting or a containment relationship, right? As opposed to a roll-up monitor, which only works with objects in the same class, you can actually link the health states of objects of different classes using a dependency monitor, right? So a classic example of that is in SCOM, Windows Server class is different, and logical disk class is different, right? So, and they are, if I'm not wrong, they are bound by a containment relationship. So it does not have any direct effect on it, but if they have been, bound together with a dependency monitor, you can actually tell SCOM, hey, actually this, I want my server to be critical if one of these instances in my logical disk class has gone critical, right? So this is where you can basically bind two classes together. So this is what exactly it is showing in this diagram. So you've got two classes, class A and class B. You've got an aggregate roll-up monitor at the top and the children unit monitors at the bottom. So you can have a hierarchy, of course, right? So it's got a roll-up monitor, then it's also got another roll-up monitors, and then that roll-up monitor has, some more children. And then there's a dependency monitor that is actually connecting these two instances of a class.
Makes sense. So as far as that is concerned, so we've talked a bit about classes.
Right.
What are sort of the uses of classes in SCOM? What sort of purpose do they serve?
Right, great question, right? So classes are basically, they group the objects of same nature together, right? So all the instances of a class will have the same properties, right? So if you've got a logical disk class, for example, then you've got the disk space, you've got the disk letters, you've got, I don't even remember the properties now, but they've got a few bunch of properties that they will always be there for every instance of that particular class, right? So this is, so this is how you can basically categorize instances of a separate type, right? So you've got disks, you've got Windows operating systems, then you've also got like subclasses, if you will, right? So you've got an operating system class, you've also got like Windows Server 2012 operating system class, you've got 2016 operating system class. So it gives you basically that granularity to, make more targeting things, to target monitors, to target workflows, target overrides, stuff like that. So this is class. So SCOM is actually all the class-oriented hierarchy, right? So everything in SCOM is treated in classes. SCOM does not necessarily know the relation between these classes always, but it sees, say, like, even if you do, like, take an example of just Windows Server, right? So there's a Windows Server class, and there are instances of it. And then there's a logical disk class, like I said, there are instances of it. Then there's a network adapter class, there are instances of it. And so SCOM does not see a server as a complete entity. This is the server, this is the logical disk, this is the network adapter to it. These are then later tied together with the relationship like containment or hosting or application and stuff like that. So it is a bit confusing if you are just starting with SCOM, but it gives you power to target something very, very specifically.
It means the objects contained in SCOM's object model relates to your infrastructure. So there should be an object for everything out there that SCOM is monitoring, which is quite powerful. And there are a couple of questions that have come in via the chat that would be sort of sensible to take now because they relate to the slides that we've just been talking about. So the first one is, if a monitor generates a warning alert, then an hour later it goes into critical state and a critical alert is shown in the ops console. Does the warning alert get elevated to critical and the warning goes away, or do both alerts remain active in SCOM? Is the question.
Good question. So I will refer you back to the table. So in this one, I think the third condition is your question here. So if it goes from warning to critical, is it gonna raise an alert? Yes, provided that the first alert was closed. You see this text? I'm not quite sure. Is it readable?
It is indeed.
So yeah, so it will create an alert provided that you've closed the warning alert.
Makes sense. Perfect. And the next question, which is a bit more of a complicated question, is how can you assign groups to a monitor because a group is a singleton type?
How can you assign a group to a monitor? Maybe the question should be flipped. How do you assign a monitor to a group? Sorry, but do you understand that question better, Bruce?
I must admit this is one that I don't know the answer to. We may need additional clarification, and if we don't have the answer, we'll get back to you.
I'm just going to, for now, I'm going to assume that the question is like, how do you target target a monitor just to a group of servers, as opposed to a class. So you can do it, but you have to go through an override. So you will target it to some class, and then you basically as you're creating it, you basically create as turned off. Then you go into the overrides, and then you turn it on for a specific group, a group of instances. Again, it is in one of my upcoming slides, so I will talk more about it later.
Sounds good. Those are the questions for now. Thanks, Samir.
Perfect. So next up, we've got rules. As we've said before, rules do not cause the health change of object to change. So this is also why they can be sometimes, let's say, for a lack of better word, deceptive, because an object can seemingly look healthy and happy on the surface, but it may still have a number of alerts open that have been raised by rules. And unlike monitors, which raise alerts only when their health state changes, rules will keep creating alerts every time an anomaly is detected, right? Even if it's been previously raised. Sorry, I was just behind the clicks, right? So it will keep creating alerts as long as the condition remains true. This is exactly why rules are very prone to get spammy and play a major role in SCOM's reputation of being a noise engine. I'm sure, Bruce, you hear to that a lot.
Oh yes, number one complaint we hear with SCOM. SCOM is a spam machine. Comments to that effect.
Exactly. So most of the times, alerts are the main culprit because, like I said, they will keep on creating new alerts as long as an anomaly is detected. So whenever you create a rule of your own, make sure to put a suppression rule on it. So it only increases the repeat count for the same alert rather than creating a new one each time. Again, I'll show you how you can configure that in the demo. And again, one of the biggest things about rules is, since rules do not have a health state, there is no question of them going back to healthy, which means there's no way that the alerts are going to, generated by rules are going to auto-close themselves. So this can be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on what the alert is about and how you want to treat that alert. If you want if you want to keep nagging your admins to, hey, fix this, then go ahead and make a rule for it. Right? But generally, I think it's safe to say that it's generally not desired. So always try to get a suppression rule on. Again, not all rules generate alerts. There are a couple of types of alerts. depending on the function that they provide, right? So there are alert generating alerts, of course, and these are the ones that actually generate some alerts. All they do is they check a condition, and if it's violated, they raise an alert. Then a different type of different type of rules is a collection rule. So these rules, they do not create alerts. They only collect data from agents and then they save it in the database. So that's all they do. And then you can, of course, then you can use this data to run your reports. Again, there are two subtypes of the collection rules, performance rules and event rules. Performance rule will collect metric data, let's say on agents, like it will save it as a time series, and event rules will collect events in it's like more textual format or a log format. Then there are also command rules, not really used as much, but they are also the ones that can let you run a command or a script on a given interval, right? So if you've got some, I've seen some clever uses of command rules actually. So if you want to, let's say from the top of my head, let's say if you want to close alerts every 6 days or whatever, right? Then you create a PowerShell that will do the same for you. And then you trigger it every 6 days using this command rule.
Makes
and
sense.
then
Just
override.
move on to override. So on rules then, rules, if some condition is met, an alert is raised and they don't automatically close. So where would you use an event-based rule over a monitor? Because it sounds like a monitor would be more useful.
Exactly. So there are instances where you may want to, prefer a rule or a monitor. Again, Bruce, that is in one of my slides. So I will talk about it later in a bit more. But yeah, that's an excellent question. So again, depending on how you want to treat that alert, again, like I said, do you want to keep nagging an admin, or do you want, say, like a service alert that has just come and gone, nobody knows about it, nobody has to know about it, maybe because it has fixed itself. So that's just less work for you ultimately, right? So that depends on how you want to, what is that you're alerting on and how you want to treat it, basically.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Then you've got overrides, right? So now that we've talked about alerts, rules, monitors, let's talk about overrides. Monitors and rules, they're basically imported with the management packs, and there are usually thousands of them. The management packs either can come from Microsoft or a third-party vendor. So the important thing to keep in mind here is that you don't have to always agree with the parameters and thresholds and frequencies of those rules or monitors that come by default. Actually, in fact, it is highly recommended that you modify those rules or even straight up like turn off a lot of monitors and rules because they are not relevant to you. Actually, Bruce, I think you will probably also agree with me here. Is like I've seen some hesitation in SCOM admins, especially the beginner admins, to actually modify these rules because they think that this is the quote unquote best practice and it should not be changed.
I couldn't agree with you more in that changing those defaults is super sensible, and that's because while there are defaults that ship with all monitoring, all of what is required is very, very company specific.
Exactly.
So what works for one company or one situation won't work for others. Another good example of where you can't use those defaults is if you monitor a test environment as well as a production environment. For production, you probably want to have alerts for more things, and in test, you may just be interested in the basic health. Is this healthy or unhealthy? So, almost rather than accept any defaults, I would almost recommend, turning off all of the alerts that come out of all of the
Tuning up.
management packs and shooting up, because then you're only turning on those the alerts from those monitors and rules that you care about. Because the danger is that some of the defaults can result in lots and lots of alerts and therefore lots and lots of emails, because that's SCOM's sort of primary mechanism for consuming those alerts, that SCOM ends up with an unfair reputation of being too chatty, basically. And the solution is we'll only turn on those rules and alerts, the alerts from them that you care about doing something with. If you don't care about it, switch it off.
Exactly. Couldn't agree more. That's the thing. So people think that it is best practice because it has come from, say, like Microsoft or the vendor, but that's not the case at all. Every environment is different, and you should have your own terms of monitoring your environment as it fits you and not Microsoft, right? So you know your alerts better than Microsoft. So go ahead, play with those overrides, change thresholds. This, like Bruce said, basically just if you could just turn off everything and then start building up. That's probably the best way of doing it. And so this is where overrides come in, right? So you can modify the behavior of a rule or a monitor here, like even turn them off, change thresholds. There are some parameters to each workflow that you can control, like frequencies, I think pretty common across all the workflows, how frequently it is running. If it is a threshold-based monitor, then you can also change the thresholds. You can define how many samples you want to evaluate for a particular alert, things like that. Timeout, if it's running a script, then there's also a timeout period that you can change. So there are a lot of parameters that you can change. So if it doesn't fit you, the out-of-the-box settings do not suit your environment, go ahead, feel free to change them. And of course, the list of these parameters that are overridable, they will change depending on which override you're making or depending on which workflow that you're currently in. Right. And then again, like I said, Bruce, I hope this is what the question was referring to. You can modify this behavior on even a single instance level, a group, or even a whole class. Right. So like I said, you can start with a rule. Let's say it is targeted to Windows servers, all Windows servers, but you only want to turn it on for a group of servers. Then you create a group of those, a subset of those servers. Then you go ahead in the override for that monitor and you turn it on only for this particular group. So it will be only active for this group and nothing else. As a general best practice, it is advised to save these overrides like separately in different management packs, just so that it is easier to track them later. Because if you make a random overrides and save them randomly, if you want to, revert back to your original configuration, it is going to be a rabbit hole that you're going to fall into. So just try to be tidy as you go along tuning your environment. So I don't really mean that save like each and every override in a separate MP of its own, but let's make a management pack, an override management pack only for SQL. And say wherever you make any override related to SQL, you save it in that SQL override pack. You make one for say like Active Directory, you save all your Active Directory overrides in that management pack and so on. Just so that things are a little tidier and that's easier to track later. This also comes in handy when you're actually like handing over to someone else, right? So again, I said I've been involved in some transitioning upgradation projects, Bruce, and some of the environments that I've seen were absolutely mess. A complete nightmare because there was a flood of alerts, overrides were all over the place. There's no naming convention, absolutely nothing. So it's just a complete nightmare.
Unfortunately common, especially when you've inherited something and you just don't know what you've inherited. Exactly. Just to add on what you said around, creating sensibly named management packs. There's a management pack that comes with SCOM called the default management pack. Whatever you do not store overrides in that guy.
Do not change it yet.
Yeah, because it's really hard to unpick then what's in the default management pack. SCOM doesn't give you sort of easy tooling natively out of the box to see where your overrides are stored. You have to rely on third-party tools, and so that becomes an issue.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree. Again, that is one of the most common mistakes I would say I've seen. It's like people make overrides in the default management pack, default override, and that is very, very dangerous. Never do it, because it has actually the potential to like destroy your whole management group. Awesome. So this is what a typical override window looks like. Again, as you can see, there's some alert properties. There's the enable property or parameter that you can actually you pick it and then you change the value from default value to your custom override value, and you save that override, and it will be active for the target that you've chosen it for, right? So again, like I said, frequency, whether or not they should generate an alert, how many number of consecutive samples you want to take, what is the threshold that you want to alert on, and so on. So of course, this will change on depending on which monitor or which rule that you have opened this window for. And I want to talk about tasks also, Bruce. So this is, again, it's not strictly alert related, but it goes hand in hand with alerts, and the alerts are fantastic. Actually, I will even start by saying that the tasks are grossly underrated, and they should be, and they are not used nearly as much as they should be. Right? Tasks are fantastic, and there's a high chance that they will save you a lot of manual labor to you and even to your users. Basically, tasks are the actions that you can take in response to an alert. For example, if a service has stopped, you can actually set up a task to go ahead and remotely start that service. If, say, like CPU is running high, you can terminate the processes that are consuming the most CPU processes, right? So you can do a lot of things with tasks. You can run them manually by clicking on a button, or you can even set them as recovery tasks or diagnostics tasks. Recovery tasks are basically they're going to be triggered automatically as soon as an alert is detected, like the service stop alert, for example. As soon as it detects that a service has stopped, it's gonna go automatically trigger itself and try to restart that service. And then there's also diagnostics tasks that let you, that collect more supporting information about an alert. Say again, a CPU is running high, then the task will automatically run in the background, and it will collect some background information as to which processes have been running, and which are the ones that are taking the high CPU. And of course, then these can also run in parallel. So this diagnostic task will give you additional information, and then the recovery task will also try to, fix that alert for you. There are two types of tasks again. So there are console tasks. These tasks basically they run on the server where your SCOM console is installed. Or then there are also agent tasks that can be run on the selected agent remotely. So you can run these directly from SCOM. You don't have to log into your servers, don't have to even open any other console or whatever. You just can run it straight away from the SCOM console. Right. So Bruce, this is where I think this is what your question is: when to use a monitor versus a rule.
Is literally my question. But just before we move off of tasks, one thing I wanted to make, to emphasize really, is that the whole architecture of SCOM is such that you've got agents on everything you're monitoring, and you can use those agents to do anything you like. So those agent tasks are super, super valuable for collecting information, but also taking actions based on the machines that those agents are installed on. So I completely agree with what you're saying about tasks. They're super underrated. We, Cookdown, who are one of the sponsors of SCOMathon, release a free management pack called the Self-Service management pack that has a bunch of tasks in it to do administration tasks to keep your SCOM management group running in tip-top shape, that is worth checking out, that utilize the console tasks as well. Just wanted to add that.
Right.
But yes, the next slide does answer my earlier question.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay, so when to use a monitor versus when to use a rule. So you should be using a monitor when you want a visual cue for the object's health state, right? If you want the health of the object itself to change based on the health of your monitor, then let's say health of your monitoring criteria, let's say, right? So if you want to do that, then go for a monitor. If you want monitors to auto close the alerts, then create a monitor, as rules don't do it, right? So again, Bruce, going back to what you said, so let's take an example of a service has stopped. A monitor will create an alert. It's gonna stay red as long as the service has been stopped. Then if the service starts, it's gonna reset and it's gonna also auto resolve its alert. But say you don't really want that. You want to keep nagging your, let's say, Windows team to, hey, that service has stopped, go investigate. That service has still stopped, go investigate. Hey, that service has still stopped, go ahead and investigate. As if you want to keep nagging them, well, for whatever reason, I guess, then go create a rule. So if you want the alerts to auto-resolve, go for a monitor. And then if you want to monitor based on a threshold, you can have, say, like a warning threshold. You can be proactive at that point because you can fix it right at the warning level before it gets critical, before it actually creates an alert and a subsequent, incident in your ticketing tool. You can avoid that. If you want to do it on a threshold-based alerting, go for a monitor. And then use a rule when you don't want to alert at all, right? So you just want to collect data, you just want to collect performance, or you just want to collect events, then go for a collection rule. Again, alerts that are not reflecting the overall health state. So I guess you could say that monitors, since they are more visual, they're going to catch your attention first. So let's say on a very broad brush here, if your alert is very, very important that you want to notify it right away, then go for monitor. If it's critical alert, but still it can like somewhat wait, I guess, then go for a rule. Because there is a high chance that you might miss rule because it does not change the health state. And again, if you don't want the alerts to auto close, then go for a rule.
Makes sense. The other thing I'd just add is if you're consuming management packs from someone else, so like Microsoft or a vendor, where someone else has written that management pack for you, you may not have a choice, but it's just worth understanding the makeup of those management packs. There's also one question in the chat I'll just quickly take, which is, I'm kind of new to SCOM monitoring, especially with regards to Unix, Linux monitors. Is there some good and recommended documentation around best practices for setting up SCOM for Unix and Linux environments? I'll let you go first, then I'll take a stab at it.
Yeah, so there is Microsoft official documentation, of course. But more than that, I think there are some really good blogs, community blogs out there that you can actually, refer to get an idea about Unix and Linux monitoring. Again, I'll be honest, I haven't worked with Unix and Linux a lot, so I'm probably not the best person to answer it. So Bruce, you said that you have some experience, I guess, and I'll let you go for it.
Yes and no. So my answer to this is because all of the tuning is so company specific or based on the use case for that monitor, there is no single right and wrong answer. But for a good starting point, what's really important is defining a sensible approach to generating overrides, essentially, and presumably within your company, there's somebody responsible for those Unix and Linux servers. They'll have an idea for what they want those what to be alerted on from those servers. So I'd recommend as sort of a process working with the people that are responsible for fixing those alerts, for helping to define what alerts they want to see. And a tool that Cookdown make that is completely free, that will help facilitate this, is a tool called EasyTune that will generate spreadsheets, basically CSV files for a scope, so a specific management pack, for example, that will capture the workflows along with their default values in a CSV file. So then you can just literally add a column to your CSV file that would represent the custom tune you want. Because then you can see exactly what the workflows are. You've got the description in that Excel spreadsheet for what each workflow does and what each parameter of that workflow does, along with the defaults that whoever it is that authored the management pack recommends. So it's a great way of sort of facilitating that conversation. There are also defaults in there for some management packs. I can't remember off the top of my head whether there is one in there for Unix or Linux, but if not, working with your domain experts is a great way to go. And that's what I'd say.
Exactly. I would even go as far as to extend it even out of Linux, right? So go talk to everyone and ask them, hey, what do you want to see? Which alerts do you want to see from SCOM? Because that was one of the questions that I often used to get asked, is like, this was kind of like a standoff between me and the other teams. Like, hey, they would ask me, what can you alert on Active Directory, for example? Then I would ask them, what do you want me to alert on? Then they would go on, but what can you alert? So it was just going back and forth, back and forth.
Chicken and egg.
So, yeah, so I would actually, I'm a big fan of EasyTune, by the way, Bruce. So go ahead, export your, let's say, Active Directory management pack. It's gonna give you all the rules and monitors that are coming from that that management pack. Take that CSV file, go to your Active Directory guy or any other guy, and show them, hey, this is what we're using. These are the thresholds. Do you want this? Yes. Okay, then we're gonna keep this on. If not, we're gonna keep this off. That's probably the best way of going around and actually, tuning alerts up and not down. So yeah, that's actually a standoff situation there. It's not only for Unix, Linux, for everything pretty much.
Indeed. Having a sort of universal approach that you can apply to any piece of monitoring is very vital, because otherwise you're just swamped by the amount of data that SCOM generates, and that looks like alerts. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. I think I'm sharing my screen. Can you see my SCOM console?
You are. And to confirm, the audience can see there's an entertaining comment in there saying, how old are those alerts? I can see one in there that's 208 days old.
Yep. As you can probably see, we don't really maintain our SCOM that much. Well, it's a secret that's been out now. But yeah.
The choice of demo labs and the like.
Cool. Right. So this is what alerts look like in the SCOM console. It's got all the good things that we just talked about. Like, it's got severity, it's got the paths, it's got the source. You may have noticed path and source for some of these things can be the same. Like here for this one here, it looks the same, but this is more apparent when the path. Path is okay. So this is one of the long-standing SCOM problems, I would say. It's like path and source, they are sometimes interchangeable, and this used to break our automation all the time, because sometimes it would give us the exact path in the path section, and sometimes it would give us in the source section. And so if you wanted to write any scripts, they would work fine for the ones that are like correctly mentioned in path, but then they would break for the source. I don't know, I haven't really checked it in a while. Is it still the same? I'm not quite sure. It doesn't look
it
like
is.
it is.
It very
Yeah,
much
it looks
depends on the management pack in question. It varies wildly.
who
So
is writing it. Yeah.
right, exactly. So it's a mixed bag basically.
Yeah, exactly. So that, unfortunately, that does, it is a tricky problem to get around, but well, yeah, anyway, so you've got severity, you've got path and source, and you've got the name, which is mostly sensible. So this one here is probably not as much because it just still PowerShell script is failed to run, but in the description, it kind of covers for it, right? So it is telling you which is the script that is exactly failing, right? So this basic pointer data source PS1 PowerShell script is failing. And then you've got resolution state. We've got all the new ones here and created again as you guys have noticed. There's a whole bunch of, oh, I think I saw a 300. There you go. There's a 341 days old. Oh, 439. Okay, that's a record.
That's exactly the
Yes.
same as my demo last time.
Yeah. So this tells you when this was created, the age, when was it last modified, who was the person that last modified it. So if it's one of the system actions, SCOM actions, then it will show a system. But you can also say, if I change the resolution state of this this alert, then it's going to change. There you go. So now it says that the last modified was by myself, and this is the last timestamp that it was modified on. And then repeat count again. So fortunately, most of them have repeat count configured for them, so that you will see that this particular alert has been detected 230 times, but there's just one alert, not 230 different alerts. You can also, there's also some other columns available, so you can add owner, type, priority, latency, description, or even custom fields. Again, custom fields are very handy if you are looking to automate your SCOM lifecycle, alert lifecycles. Ticket ID, again, if you've got integrations going to your ITSM tools, then you can show that in the ticket ID and so on. Then each alert also has properties. These are all the general properties. These are the key details. Where is it coming from and all. Description of an alert, again, is probably more interesting ones are product knowledge that comes from the management packs. And you can actually have your own company knowledge if you want to treat this alert like specially, then you can also add your own custom knowledge and save it for this alert. Then you also got history, as you can see. So it was just created, activated by the system at this time. And then I just recently changed it. So it has also recorded that history here. Then it's got a little bit of alert context. This is I guess for more SCOM experienced or more SCOM savvy people, I would say. The ones that are more involved in the management pack authoring will probably make more sense to them. And of course, you've got custom fields like I just showed you. You can also auto-populate this, and then you can make your automation rules. I think, Bruce, do you guys use this as Cookdown? I think you guys use custom fields to automate to like ITSM.
Yeah, so when we connect SCOM to ServiceNow, we pull back things like the incident ID that's raised from each SCOM alert, the owner, the assignment group, CI, business service, that kind of thing, and store it in these custom fields. Anything
Right.
to do with ownership, it's a great place to store data because it lives with that alert.
Yeah, perfect. There you go. So you can use this for automation. Then on the right, you've also got, okay, there's not a lot of tasks for this one. There you go. So this here on the right, it's also got a navigation menu and a tasks menu, again, like the one I said. These tasks will change depending on the alert that you've chosen, of course. So this one, this is a task targeted to this particular class, which is Oracle Computer Windows class, because the rule that created alert has been targeted to this particular class. So if you go to, let's see if I can find a different class. There you go. So this one is a nice library computer list of nice library computer tasks. Again, this might be different ones. Oh, there's nothing here, so no tasks assigned to that. Then you've got sales app tasks. So you can create your own task and target it to your own custom classes as well. So you can just simply select an alert. There you go. Health survey tasks. A lot of them. I think I spot some of these. Are they coming from Cookdown management packs, or is it Kevin Holman's admin management pack? Quite not sure.
Kevin, oh, hang on, possibly a mixed bag actually.
Yeah.
Mixed bag.
So there's a lot of good things that you can do from here.
Right. Yeah, some of these possibly are coming from the self-service management pack, self-maintenance management pack, sorry.
Yeah.
Which is one of our key ones.
Cool. So again, like I was saying, so these task list, this list will change. So if I showed you, so this is an alert rule that is creating this alert. So if I click on this alert rule here, you will see that the rule target here is health service. And this matches up with the list of tasks here, right? So this is the health service tasks, all the tasks that are targeted on this particular class. And now that I'm on the rules, let's take a look at the overrides again, right? So this is where you can change the thresholds, turn things on and off. You can see the summary, whether if there are any active overrides affecting this particular workflow or not. So currently there's none. If it was, it will give you a list of the places or the sources where this is currently, overridden. So if you go for, so like I said, so you can do it for an individual instance. For example, only for this sim02 sales.int SquaredUp.com server, or you can do it for all objects of the same class, which is the health service class. And then you can also do it for a group. You can also do it for specific objects of different classes. But I mean, I don't really use this option this much, because why would you go on health service class and then try to override a value for a Windows Server class? That just makes things more confusing personally for me, so I don't really use this option here much often. So if I go here, let's say, for example, so here there's only 3 overrideable parameters. So you can either enable or disable it, or you can change the priority and severity of this alert. Again, this will add or remove more columns as there are some different workflows that affect different states. Okay, so I've shown you the tasks. I've shown you. Oh, okay. I just remembered I was gonna tell you about the suppression rules. So if you go in a rule, so monitors will not have this field, because monitors are, let's say, by default suppressed, because they will only change state. They will only alert when the health is changed. Rules don't work that way. That's why you have to explicitly configure suppression rules. So if you go to the properties of that rule and then go to configuration and then go to responses and view, you will see that at the bottom there, here's the alert suppression criteria. So this one here says, if the alert has the same full event number and the same value in parameters 2, 6, and 8, treat it as the same alert. So it is not going to create a new alert. It is going to just increase the repeat count. If you don't configure it, it's going to create new alerts every time. That's why suppression is important. Let's go back to the slides real quick. Just want to show you one quick slide.
While you're switching screens and stuff, there's a question that's just come in that asks, what is the actual difference between workflow and the alert itself, is the question.
Workflow and the alert. Okay, so workflow is a catch-all phrase for pretty much anything in SCOM. So a monitor is a workflow, a rule is a workflow, and alert is a workflow. It's not a separate entity of any sort.
Indeed. So basically, the workflows are the thing that contain the monitoring and generate alerts. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah. Okay, we're running a bit over time, so I'll wrap it up. So notifications, now that we've covered the basics of alerting, let's move on to how you would send these alerts out of SCOM. So there are a few notifications options in SCOM to choose from. You can send alerts via emails, which is probably the most used way, text messages, or even you can also send it to your like instant messaging IM platforms. There are 3 components to notifications. What do you want to send? How do you want to send it? And who do you want to send it to? Right. So in SCOM, these are called channel, subscribers, and subscriptions. So channel defines like how you want to send the alerts out. The options are emails, IM, and SMS, like we just talked about, and then there's also a command notification channel that is a little special in the sense that it lets you run commands or scripts in response to an alert again, right? So if you've got more complex action you want to take when a particular alert happens, then you can write a whole script and then trigger it via command notification channel. You can also use this channel, by the way. We used to use this command notification channel for automating. So we had integrated our service, not ServiceNow. Yeah, I think it was ServiceNow, SCOM and ServiceNow via a command notification script channel. Then you've got subscribers. So this is where these are the people, or basically the email IDs that you want to send your alerts to. And so you can specify an individual email ID, multiple IDs, or even an email ID of a distribution list, for example, right? So all people in this in NOC team are gonna get that particular alert. And then lastly, you've got subscription. So this defines the the criteria that must meet before an alert is sent out, right? So for example, here you can specify something like send alerts only with a specific severity, or alerts that are coming from only a list of specific monitors, or alerts that have a specific substring in their name, and so on, right? So you can of course combine different criteria and apply a AND logic to it. So if all of the criteria is met, then only the alert will go out. For one last time, I'm gonna quickly go back to my SCOM and show how you can actually do it. Right, so here on the left, you've got in the administration menu, you've got channels, subscribers, and subscriptions. So in the channel, you can, if you create a new channel, so you've got all these 4 options that we talked about: email, instant message, text message, or command. If I were to show you quickly the email one, of course, it needs your SMTP details, because SMTP is the one that's going to send out emails. It's going to need settings as to what return address should these alerts should go out from SCOM. It does not have to be a legit email address. It can be anything. It just shows up in your from field in your email. And again, how long do you want to before retrying the connection, and so on. You add your SMTP here, and then you add your subscribers. You add, let me show you the subscription one that is more interesting. If I go to subscriptions, create a new one. So here you will have scope. You know what? Let me check this one out. That's so it's got description and the name, of course, and this is the scope. So scope, basically here it says notify on all alerts. So it's going to send out alerts for any alert that is going to come. Or you can again set up conditions if you want instance only from a specific group. So if you click on specific, it will give you a list of all your groups that you can then choose from the drop down. Then you've got the criteria is to so say for example, if severity equals critical, then only send these alerts out. There are more parameters that you can basically, all these ones, you can assign values to them, and based on that, they're going to send out alerts. Subscribers again, this is the people or the email IDs essentially that this alert is going to be sent to. Is it not going to let me? It's not going to let me go further before I configure the criteria, basically. There you go. So now it's gonna ask me, where do you want to send these alerts out? So this is some KB test list of users there. And then the channel, this one is actually using command notification channel. So it's probably a script that it is running in the background every time an alert is detected. And then, of course, the summary of everything that you've configured. Right, so there's also, again, a good documentation available from Microsoft on how to configure these things. There are also some really good community blogs that I would encourage you to check out. And with that, I'm going to go back to my slides, and I'm going to hand it back to you, Bruce.
Thank you, Samir. So we've covered a lot of stuff there. As you can see, SCOM is clearly very complicated. It does a lot of stuff, and it does that stuff really, really well. But clearly, that isn't that level of detail can't be taken in an hour's webinar. So on the Cookdown sites, there's a blog that covers all of this and kind of more, the SCOM Alerts Basics blog that was originally written by a guy called Leon Lord, who is another expert like Samir in this area. He wrote this, and we've got it from him to put on our sites. It's worth checking that out because all of what we've covered is in there. It's a really, really valuable resource. Click. Let's see if I can click. Ooh. See, will it let me click your screen? It will. So as with all of our coffee breaks, we're always open to suggestions. So if you've seen today's coffee break and you think, I really, really need to go deeper on monitors to understand dependency versus aggregate monitors, for example, we're all ears. So email us, hello@scomathon.com. We're also on Twitter @scomathon. And of course, don't forget to sign up for future sessions and look at scomathon.com for the recordings of this coffee break plus other ones, as well as slides and blogs. We are going to write up all of our coffee break webinars in blog form as well, so they can be consumed in that form too. So awesome. If you could click for me, Samir, that would be great. And before we end this webinar, just a quick word from our sponsors, who are Cookdown, which is the company that I work for. We make code-free integrations for SCOM. If you could click one more time, Samir. We've talked about some of the areas that we kind of handle here. So we connect SCOM to a number of platforms. Think about what Samir is just showing you with command channels and instant messaging and all of that stuff. SCOM's primary mechanism for sending notifications places is email, because the rest of the notification options are quite dated. We give you some more options with our Connection Center product, which is all about sending those SCOM alerts to other places like ServiceNow and Sharewell, Teams and Slack and messaging platforms, and ultimately anywhere you like using the power of webhooks. Yes, modern webhooks and SCOM. So we connect SCOM to anywhere with our Connection Center product. Also, we have free tools such as EasyTune, which we touched on a bit earlier, to make the pain of alert tuning easier, and I thoroughly recommend you check them out. If you could click for me one more time, Samir. Also, SquaredUp are one of our sponsors. SquaredUp, I don't work for, but given we're out of time, I'll give you the 2-second version. So SquaredUp are the not-so-secret source for SCOM success. SquaredUp do dashboarding tools for SCOM and other tools. So you have a single pane of glass in which you can see all of the relevant data across all of your tools in the single place, which is really, really valuable when you're trying to figure out what's broken and why. So that's SquaredUp. I'd recommend you check it out. They give you a free 30-day trial. And then finally, a quick plug for the next SCOMathon event that we're running. So on November the 16th and 17th, we're running an event called HackerSCOM. All the information is on the SCOMathon website. If you could click for me one more time, Samir. HackerSCOM is all about getting our community together and solving some really cool monitoring challenges to get our competitors to build some really cool monitoring for whatever you guys suggest. So I'm really interested in hearing what you guys want for our contestants to build in a hackathon, essentially. If you go to scomathon.com/hackerscom-2021, there's a sign-up form there, and also a form where we're taking your suggestions, which we're going to put to our judges for vote. I can't do this justice in the few seconds I've got left, so if you could continue to click, that will be great, Samir. So that is everything. So if there are any questions, we'll take them now. I've been trying to interject with them as we go. Let's see if there are any other questions. Do we get a recording session of? Do we get a recording of this session? Is there any link? So yes, all of our coffee breaks are recorded, and the recording will be posted on scomathon.com, and you'll get notified by email when that recording is ready. Your connection to ServiceNow, does it do a push from SCOM to ServiceNow? So Connection Center, everything is initiated from SCOM. SCOM alerts are pushed from SCOM to ServiceNow. Also, updates on the incidents raised are pulled from SCOM back into SCOM. So you can see information like incident ID, for example, in SCOM. Are there any other questions? Let's give it a moment. This is where we ride the silence and just see. We've had quite a few good questions as we've gone through. Okay, I think the answer is no. So all that's left to do is say thank you very much to everyone who attended today's session. Sorry for overrunning. I really hope it's been valuable to you. And of course, thank you, Samir, for helping me out with presenting. I really appreciate your time and expertise. No, not at all. I'll have you again tomorrow. Thank you very much. And I hope to see you all at HackerScom on the 16th and 17th of June, and of course, at our next coffee break. Thank you very much, everyone. Until next time. Goodbye.
Next time. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.